what the highlight reel is? That's when they, at the end of the day, they gather all the plays, the sports plays, ESPN, and they highlight the greatest plays of the day. And they do the countdown. This was the 10th greatest play, the 9th greatest play, all the way to the first greatest play of the night. And I really want you to know that God wants you to make the highlight reel. The highlight is that play that stands out amongst all the plays and games that were played that day. The newscaster picked the one play that was worthy to be number one because it had a spectacular finish. And beloved, you are going to be put on the highlight reel in 2005. God is going to set you up so that something spectacular can happen to you, so that you'll stand out and God can get the glory. Listen, you're going to be a buzzer beater. You're going to be the half-court shot. You're going to be the last pass of the game. You're going to get in just in the nick of time. God's going to show up. His timing is just right. I know the clock is winding down. I know you're about to hold your head down, but listen, don't quit, baby. Don't give up. God is going to show up right on time. You have to believe that God comes on his time. You got to believe that nothing just happens. When Jesus finally does get to see Mary and Martha, Lazarus is dead. And my friends, are you ready for the fact that sometimes it might get worse before it gets better? Verse 17 states that when Christ arrived, Lazarus was in the tomb for 4 days. When they called on the Lord to come see him, he was still alive. But now he's dead. It went from bad to worse. Thirdly, you have to believe. You have to believe. You have to believe. Even when it goes from bad to worse. It's not all shouting tonight. In 2004, some of us had some situations go from bad to worse. You prayed about it, you fasted about it, you called on the Lord, you called the deacons, you called the preacher, you called the minister, you called the hotline, you called everybody, you called everybody. You waited and you waited, you did what you could, you did all you did, but nothing changed. As a matter of fact, it went from bad to worse. It was bad in 2003, but it got worse in 2004. Some of us in here are saying, you're saying to yourself, in 2003 I messed up, but in 2004 I got really messed up. I was in debt in 2003, but in 2004 I really got behind. I was barely working in 2003. Now I'm not even working at all in 2004. It went from bad to worse. We were having problems in 2003, Pastor, but now we're not even speaking to each other in 2004. It went from bad to worse. Am I talking to somebody in the house tonight? The sisters both said in verse 21 and in verse 32, Lord, if you just would have been here, if you would have gotten here earlier, it was bad, but now it's worse. It was really bad, but now it's really worse. They both assumed that Jesus had to get there before Lazarus died to have any effect on the situation. They did not realize as long as he shows up, he's still on time. Mary and Martha knew the Lord was powerful, but they didn't know how powerful. You see, many of us believe, but we don't believe that much. Many of us still have places in our lives that we believe God can, but there's some areas where we don't think that he can do. Listen, we believe, but we don't believe that much. Listen, we believe when it's bad, but we don't believe when it gets worse. We believe when we're in trouble. We believe when we're really in trouble. Listen, they knew how to call on him when it was bad, but they thought it had gotten past the point of no return. They called him when it was bad, but they knew that he had to get there before it got worse. They had never seen anybody get better when it got worse. They had never seen anyone come back from worse. And see, somebody here, you went from bad to worse, and you're assuming that you could have got back, you could have got out when it was bad, but now it's worse. You don't see how you can get out of it now. Look, the Mary and Martha have seen Jesus work on bad.